Cold exposure is not about suffering, toughness, or pushing limits for the sake of discomfort. It is a precise biological stimulus that activates deeply conserved adaptive mechanisms in human physiology. When the body is exposed to cold, it does not merely react defensively. It initiates a cascade of coordinated responses designed to preserve energy, protect vital organs, and improve long-term survival. The first priority during cold exposure is maintaining core temperature. To do this, the body activates thermogenesis, a heat-producing process that relies heavily on metabolic activity rather than movement. Unlike exercise-induced heat, cold-induced thermogenesis engages different tissues and signaling pathways, making it uniquely valuable for metabolic health. One of the most important tissues activated by cold is brown adipose tissue, commonly known as brown fat. Brown fat exists specifically to generate heat, not to store energy. Brown fat is densely packed with mitochondria, the cellular structures responsible for energy production. These mitochondria contain a protein called UCP1, which allows energy to be released as heat instead of being stored as ATP. When brown fat is activated, the body increases energy expenditure without increasing physical workload. This raises basal metabolic rate even during rest. Over time, repeated cold exposure increases both the activity and the volume of brown fat, improving metabolic efficiency and glucose handling. Cold exposure also improves insulin sensitivity by increasing glucose uptake into muscle and brown fat cells, reducing the demand placed on the pancreas. This is one of the reasons cold exposure is associated with reduced risk of metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. Beyond metabolism, cold exposure has a powerful effect on the cardiovascular system. Blood vessels constrict in response to cold, redirecting blood toward vital organs. When rewarming occurs, these vessels dilate, improving circulation and vascular elasticity. This cycle acts as training for the endothelium, the inner lining of blood vessels. Improved endothelial function enhances oxygen delivery, nutrient exchange, and waste removal at the tissue level, supporting recovery and long-term cardiovascular health. Cold exposure also stimulates lymphatic circulation, aiding in the removal of metabolic byproducts and inflammatory molecules from tissues. The nervous system plays a central role in cold adaptation. Cold activates the sympathetic nervous system, leading to increased release of norepinephrine. Norepinephrine enhances alertness, focus, and reaction time while simultaneously mobilizing stored energy. Unlike dopamine-driven stimulation, norepinephrine activation through cold does not produce the same addictive or depleting patterns when exposure is controlled. Repeated cold exposure trains the nervous system to tolerate stress more efficiently. Over time, this reduces exaggerated stress responses to everyday challenges. This improved stress resilience translates into better emotional regulation, reduced anxiety, and improved cognitive clarity in many individuals. At the cellular level, cold exposure stimulates mitochondrial biogenesis, the process by which cells create new mitochondria. An increased number of mitochondria improves energy efficiency, endurance, and resistance to fatigue across multiple tissues. Cold exposure also activates autophagy, the cellular cleanup process responsible for removing damaged proteins and dysfunctional components. Autophagy is a critical mechanism for longevity, cellular repair, and disease prevention, particularly in aging tissues. Inflammation is another major target of cold exposure. Controlled cold reduces chronic low-grade inflammation by modulating immune signaling pathways. This reduction in inflammation benefits joints, muscles, blood vessels, and the nervous system, contributing to overall physical resilience. Cold exposure also influences hormone regulation. It improves insulin signaling, supports healthy cortisol rhythms, and enhances sensitivity to adrenaline and norepinephrine. These hormonal adaptations improve energy availability during stress while preventing chronic hormonal dysregulation. From an evolutionary perspective, humans evolved with frequent exposure to temperature variation. Seasonal cold was a normal environmental signal that shaped adaptive biology. Modern environments eliminate these signals, keeping the body in a constant thermal comfort zone that underutilizes adaptive systems. Cold exposure reintroduces this missing signal, reminding the body how to regulate energy, temperature, and stress efficiently. Importantly, the benefits of cold exposure are dose-dependent. Excessive exposure without recovery increases stress hormones and suppresses immune function. Adaptation does not occur during the cold itself. It occurs during recovery, when the body integrates the stress signal and rebuilds stronger systems. This is why short, controlled exposures followed by proper rewarming are more effective than prolonged or extreme cold. Cold showers, ice baths, and cryotherapy can all produce similar physiological effects when applied consistently and intentionally. The method matters less than the signal and the recovery that follows. Cold exposure is not a standalone solution. Its benefits are amplified when combined with proper sleep, circadian alignment, nutrition, and movement. When integrated correctly, cold exposure becomes a tool for metabolic optimization, cellular resilience, and long-term health. The goal is not to become resistant to cold, but to restore the body's ability to adapt intelligently to stress. Cold does not weaken the body. When used correctly, it teaches the body how to become stronger, more efficient, and more resilient over time.